All right, I think we could kick off. All right, so good evening. My name is Sandro Tejada, Director of Major Gifts and our Parents Program. And I just want to thank all of you for joining our 5th annual Mix and Mingle event today. Unfortunately, we're here virtually, but at least we can see each other. Excited to introduce you and our wonderful families to the Institute's leadership team and the wonderful students that make the Buccino Leadership Institute great. At the Buccino Leadership Institute, the mission is to develop extraordinary leaders. As part of its mission, a group of students in the Institute about 4 years ago created the Family Initiative that looks to maximize family engagement in the growth and development of students through parents sharing their knowledge, experiences, and networks. And I'm excited to introduce and collaborate with our new co-presidents of the Family Initiative, Nicole Caldera and Nicole Stangl. Nicole Caldera is a junior majoring in marketing, and Nicole Stangl is also a junior majoring in economics. And of course, they both are members of the Buccino Leadership Institute within the business cohort. Nicole's, take it away.
Hello, welcome everyone again to the 5th annual Mix and Mingle event. Nicole and I are going to be doing a quick presentation on things that we've done within the Family Initiative in the past and things that we plan to do in the future. So I'm gonna share my screen. Just give me 1 minute. Can everyone see this?
Yes.
Yes, okay. I'm just gonna put it in present mode. Okay. So as we stated before, we are the Leadership Family Initiative. My name is Nicole Caldera, and Nicole Stangl will be presenting this with me as well. The mission of the Family Initiative is to maximize leadership family engagement in the growth and development of students through family members sharing their knowledges, experiences, and their networks.
So a few of the goals that we have are basically just focused on connecting students to family members of other leadership students, encouraging families to provide students informal opportunities for networking, company tours, even internships and job opportunities upon graduation. We love hosting families that come to talk about their careers to our students. That is a very highly sought after event that students gain a lot of value from. That's just another goal, just getting students aware of what families are doing so they can see what their potential career path can be like and make those networking connections early on in their career at Seton Hall.
So some events that we usually do, the Mix and Mingle event, we usually had in person before COVID happened. It would be on Seton Hall Parents Weekends, and all the parents would be able to get together and we'd be able to do all of this in person and talk face to face. But for the past 2 years, we've done it virtually. We also do the Seton Hall basketball pregame reception, where we pick a basketball game for all leadership families and students to attend. And there's a pregame at a restaurant across the street from the Prudential Center called Mercado Tomato Pie, where we can eat before the game and then all go to the game. We block out a section where we all sit together. Then we have our guest speaker events where parents can volunteer to speak to students about their careers and what they do for a living. So any parent within the institute can volunteer to do so, and then the students can attend the event on that night. And then there's other receptions that we have similar to the basketball pregame reception, where if there's like an event going on where everyone can attend together, there will be a reception afterwards or beforehand. And then we also take any suggestions that you guys may have as well for any event that may be going on that you think would be fun for families to attend with our leadership students. And then we have a save the date for this coming December on the 12th. the Seton Hall versus Rutgers basketball game is the game that we chose to have the pregame reception for. So at 6 p.m. we would go to the Mercado Tomato Pie. It's right across the street from Prudential Center. There's more details to come because we haven't solidified all of this yet, but we're planning for the Seton Hall versus Rutgers game on December 12th.
So looking to the future a bit more, we obviously want to achieve all of the goals that Nicole Caldera just spoke about successfully, and again, bringing our students and families closer together, hopefully being more in person than last year, just being safe with everything, but hopefully seeing everyone in person. And of course, incorporating all of the cohorts of the Buccino leadership together to, again, just bring everyone together and basically mix and mingle for the rest of the academic year. So that concludes our quick little presentation on current goals and future goals. We're now going to move into more of a panel discussion. So I would like to introduce the director of the Buccino Leadership Institute, Dr. Brian Price, to speak first.
Awesome. Thanks, Nicole. Actually, you have to thank both Nicoles. Thank you, Nicole Stengel. Thanks to you, Nicole Caldera. And thanks to Sandro for putting all this stuff together. And welcome to all of the families that are out there. I know your children, but it's good seeing put a faces to some names here. And know for the people that saw a Villanova pop up on our screen, that was not someone Zoom bombing us. Our program is so attractive that we have people named Villanova coming to participate. So, Mr. Villanova, it's great having Gianna in class. So thanks for coming to Seton Hall. And but don't think that we're not going to use that for marketing material moving forward. Also want to thank all of our associate directors that took the time to come on tonight. Ruchin Kansal, I think you saw in the chat, is unable to come on. He's actually talking to his students, and he has Kevin Cummings, who's the CEO of Investors Bank, talking to those students. So he's occupied. If he can jump on, he will. In terms of my comments, first off, again, thank you to all the parents for entrusting your children with us. I can tell you it is a extremely rewarding position that we're in to work with Seton Hall's best and brightest students. And so what a fantastic way to wake up in the morning knowing that you're going to get a chance to work with those types of high caliber individuals. Just for those that don't know my background, I am also starting my senior year at Seton Hall. I got here 3 years ago. Prior to that, I was a officer in the Army. I retired as lieutenant colonel, spent 20 years. Half of which was in Army aviation, flying attack helicopters. The second half was teaching at West Point and running a place called the Combating Terrorism Center after getting a PhD from Stanford University. And then when I retired in 2018 as a lieutenant colonel, I came and started work and stood up this institute, which, while the leadership program at Seton Hall is not new, that dates back to the mid-1990s. The institute is. And for the parents of seniors that are on here, your children started it all, right? So they've been through kind of this unique experiment. Really excited that this year, for the first time, we have all 4 classes in operation, which is both exciting and terrifying and taxing on the associate directors and myself. But we're trying to provide what I think is the most unique 4 years of leadership development that is outside of the military academies at these institutions. Just for the freshman parents on here and some of the sophomore parents, you know that we took your children to the 9/11 Museum and Memorial this past Friday and got a chance to get a personalized experience from that museum. And then also we had a gentleman by the name of Bill Spade, who was class of 1981. Who was the only survivor from Rescue 5 from Staten Island, talk to our students and talk about his experiences that day. So very Seton Hall specific component. In terms of other kind of big news, and I'm sure we'll have some opportunities for some Q&A at the end potentially, we also reached a really cool milestone a couple weeks ago. The Middle Atlantic Association of Colleges of Business Administration which essentially equates to every single business school on the East Coast. They have an annual conference where they give out one award, and that one award is in innovation and teaching. And so for the first time in Seton Hall's history, we won that award. And we essentially gave them the curriculum of what we're doing specifically for our freshmen and sophomores in that program. And so for those of you that have students that are juniors and seniors, you know that in the spring of our freshman and sophomore years, we put our students through these things that we call interdisciplinary team projects. And it's a pretty special opportunity for people to exercise leadership, not just talk about it. And it really kind of hits at the three components of our program that I think are really impactful. The first is we're interdisciplinary. We have 34 different majors from 270 students that are in the program right now. The second is it's experiential. This isn't just sitting down and listening to people wax poetically about leadership. It is interactive and experiential. And then the third component is feedback. Again, this is what I also think differentiates our program. We have our students take the industry's top assessments in leadership and emotional intelligence. Those things cost hundreds of dollars per student. And then every one of our students gets a professional ICF certified leadership coach in between their sophomore and junior years. That is also a significant cost at the Institute, and we pass none of those costs on to our students. So when I talk to individuals outside of our program that are in the corporate world, for example, and I explain what our 4-year program is, they know the value of it in dollars and cents in terms of it is thousands of dollars of leadership development, and not to mention the fact that we are very focused on development, not on looking good. So when we run our interdisciplinary team projects and they go awry, it's not administrators and faculty holding hands and making sure that the projects are perfect, because we feel like you can learn just as much from adversity and failure sometimes as you can from just because you have a fancy project. The other kind of component that I'm excited about before I turn it over to the associate directors is for one of the first times in the Institute's history, we are starting to work with entities in development in terms of leadership development outside of the Institute. So, for example, on Wednesday nights this semester, myself and 2 other individuals, both of which are Seton Hall alumni, are running a leadership and development program where the Institute's able to take our thought leadership outside and provide professionals, not just undergraduates, but professionals in their field with some of the excellent leadership development that we are giving our students. That is allowing us to create some revenue so that we can start becoming, so that we're not taking from the university, we're actually, providing for ourselves. And those opportunities are out there. So if you have family members, if you have people at work, if you have individuals that are interested in getting a taste of what we do, those are also options available. We have alumni options. We have, a lot of discounted stuff going on there. So if that is of interest, I'd ask you to take a look at that. So I think my 5 minutes is largely up. I'm sure there will be some questions. I'm happy to answer questions also in the chat, but I'll turn it back over to the Calderas and the 2 Nicoles, because I think we have our associate directors that are going to be speaking after me. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Price. There will be an opportunity for questions at the end, but we will be taking questions in the chat as it goes. So if you do have a question now, you could put it in the chat, and anyone will be able to answer it on the panel later. But now I'd like to introduce the Associate Director for the College of Nursing, Dr. Catherine Connolly.
Hello, I'd like to welcome all the parents. I just love meeting parents. I just really enjoy meeting all of you. I represent the College of Nursing, and we're just so proud to participate in this program. We currently have 33 nursing students involved, and it's really unique for nursing students because leadership development for nurses usually doesn't start until graduate school. So our students are really having an amazing head start with this. And I've really been very proud of them for what they've been able to achieve within this framework with the development and, you know, all the in-services that they've received. So they're really, really doing well. In terms of just a couple examples, in about 2 weeks, our senior nursing students are going up to Hackensack Medical Center. They have a session with the chief nurse executive there. She's going to give them an overview of, you know, what it's like, the challenges that we're currently facing, and giving them more of a systems outlook on our profession. She's also going to place each one of them that day with one of her nurse leaders, you know, under her ranks, and they will have an experience that is extremely unique. So that's just one of the things that they're going to be doing. Additionally, in terms of parents, we love having the parents involved. One of our students who is currently a junior, her mother is a nurse, and she's doing her junior project on retention for nurses. So she has a whole pool of nurses from Jefferson Hospital in Philadelphia that her mother knows. And she's going to be interviewing them, you know, about keeping them at the hospital, if they want to leave, why they want to leave. You know, this is a very problematic issue that we're facing right now, and it's a very expensive problem to have if you're a facility. So she's going to get a lot of valuable information from, you know, tapping into her mother's resources. So that's just a couple examples of what they're doing, and it's just really a pleasure to work with them. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Connolly. I would now like to introduce the Associate Director of the College of Education, Miss Yolanda Jackson.
Good evening, everyone. So glad to see our parents and families here for us to be able to just come together and really be able to talk more about the Buccino Leadership Institute. Again, my name is Yolanda Jackson. I'm the Associate Director for our College of Education and Human Services cohort. I've been serving in this capacity now. This is my 3rd year. I'm also a full-time doctoral student in the College of Ed, so committed to Seton Hall in more ways than one. I really, really want to talk about the things that we've been doing in the College of Education in our cohort, because I like to call our students teacher leaders. Oftentimes, the position of a teacher is just seen as a support role or an advocate role. But our students in this program really get the opportunity to merge not just their role as a teacher and as an educator, but equally as a leader in their classrooms, in their communities, and in any other capacities that they see themselves emerging into as teacher leaders. So in our particular cohort, during the juniors and senior years, of course, the overall Leadership Institute in freshman and sophomore year, they do an interdisciplinary teams project. We do a more disciplinary focused service project in the junior and senior years, which is what we call the Education Issues Agenda. So in our fall semesters of the junior and senior years, our students really dive into education issues that they've seen in K through 12 education. So that can be something around family engagement. They can talk about different disparities that they see in the classroom, the use of technology, innovation. And so we take one of those issues and then we connect it to a school or organization in the area and come together. They come together as individual teams and come up with a service project. Last year, in a tumultuous time like COVID, where we know K through 12 education was really hit the most, and it was so challenging because as a leader of myself and of the students in our program, I had to really work with students who began their education at Seton Hall with a desired profession in mind, and that profession, as they knew it, changed in one swoop of COVID. And so now how do we work through that as leaders? How do we innovate? How do we kind of pull ourselves up by our own bootstraps and really get back to remembering what we are purposed to do as teacher leaders? And so what we were able to do was come together, connect with an organization in New Jersey called the Court Appointed Special Advocates, and we did a drive. We did a drive for schools in the city of Newark that needed different things for students that found themselves in the foster care system or adoptive system. And it was great to see our students come together, great to see students even in the Leadership Institute give. We had to be innovative by students sending things via Amazon because they couldn't physically come into the office. And so to be able to kind of see that drive come together, and all of the things that students and families and administrators were able to give, and to see those students really be able to go in with the tools that they needed for virtual learning, the tools that they needed just to be safe during COVID. We were gathering masks, we gathered earbuds, we gathered binders, we gathered so many different things, gloves, hand sanitizer, all the things that students now needed to be able to be the best selves, but be their best selves in the classroom. And so we're continuing those efforts in our cohort, and we are continuing to be able to connect our students to families as well. And so it's my hope that this year, as we begin to dive into our education issues agenda, some of our service projects will be connecting and collaborating with not just students, but also families, because we're really going through those different conversations about how important it is for teacher leaders to connect not only with their students and fellow teachers and administrators, but equally how important the family piece is as well. I'll be here for questions. It's great to see you all, and I look forward to talking with you more.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. Now I'd like to introduce the Associate Director of the College of Diplomacy and International Relations, Dean Elizabeth Halpen.
Hi, parents. Thank you for being with us tonight. It's a pleasure to meet all of you virtually. I look forward to the time when we can all be in person together again. I wanted to share some of the things that diplomacy is doing. So our whole cohort does a lot of team building activities, trainings, a peer mentorship program, and guest speaker events. We just had a guest speaker last Friday who was a PhD student of Princeton who was researching Central Asia and spent some time in Iran when the JCPOA agreement was in effect. So it gave him an opening to travel to Iran. Unfortunately, that didn't last, the JCPOA, as we all know. And so he was eventually arrested in Iran and spent 2 years in prison in Iran before he was released through a prisoner exchange. And so he now works for think tanks and research institutes, and has a very interesting perspective on U.S. foreign policy that is different from what our students are hearing in the classroom from their teachers and different from what we're hearing on the news based on his real life experience. So we have a really interesting group of diverse speakers who come to chat with your children, you know, in an exclusive kind of way. It's much more conversational, and they, you know, the speaker spends at least 50%, sometimes 75% of their time with the students, answering the students' individual questions, and, you know, and learning together. Our upperclassmen, our juniors do a seminar where they sort of distill all the information that they've learned in leadership and in the School of Diplomacy over their first 2 years and decide what they think are the most essential skills that they've learned for careers in diplomacy and international affairs. And they put together a program to teach those skills to their fellow students. So not only are they teaching them now, they're the ones hosting our training events for the cohort. So they're teaching them to the cohort, but they're also teaching them to the diplomacy freshmen outside of the Leadership Institute. So we're starting to impact the greater diplomacy and international affairs community here. Our seniors are doing a master class right now, and we're doing programs on getting into grad school, applying for jobs, networking, protocol, and asking for recommendations, mentorship, those kind of expertise that we're getting both internally and externally for them to have sort of an advanced class on professional development to prepare them for their future career. So those are the kinds of things we're doing in diplomacy. Our upperclassmen are being mentored by alumni of the program. They have many opportunities to network. We're having our school's board of advisors meeting on Friday, and they have an opportunity to network with those folks and make connections for internships and jobs and informational interviews and things like that. So we try to give them sort of exclusive opportunities to meet with people that will help them later on in their career. So those are some of the things we're doing. Happy to answer questions and share more. Take care. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Dean Halpen. And thank you again to all of the associate directors and Dr. Price for giving a brief introduction about what your goals are for the cohorts. We are now going to move into the Q&A session. So any parents out there or students that do have a question, feel free to type it in the chat or use the raise your hand function, and we will call on you. We do have one question in the chat already, and I'm going to direct this to Dr. Connolly. Will you have opportunities for pre-PA students to meet with professionals currently in the field?
So the PA students in our program go under arts and sciences, but they do have very similar experiences, similar leadership experience. But Dean Kaiser, who's not here tonight, would be able to speak a little bit more specifically to that. But yes, the goal with them is to not only expose them to the usual clinical activities, but to expose them to people in leadership roles that are kind of directing change in our field.
Sandra, I see you have your hand raised if you wanted to ask something.
Yeah, as usual, I do receive a lot of questions from parents. So I did receive some from parents that were unable to attend. So I want to make sure I share their questions with our panel. And this might be for Dr. Price. This was a question. What are some examples of student pitching original project ideas to the Institute, which is something that occurs in their sophomore year?
Correct. Just to provide maybe a little context and just back out a little bit, it might be helpful to talk about the process that we go through. So actually, thanks to our seniors, we got feedback in our first semester freshman year that those students wanted more interdisciplinary interaction, and they wanted to kind of get their hands dirty and actually experience leadership. And thus was born this notion of interdisciplinary team projects. And so what we did or what we still do in the freshman year is we split our entire freshman cohort up into 7 teams of about 10 or 11 students. And these are very purely interdisciplinary teams, meaning there's 2 business students, there's 2 arts and science students, there's a nurse, there's an educator, there's a diplomat. And so with that, we give them a menu of 3 items to choose from to do a semester-long project where they have to work together in order to complete a deliverable by the end of the year. And that deliverable is presented to myself, it's presented to the deans, presented to the provost and university leadership. So it's how do you experience, how do you operate on an interdisciplinary team over the course of a semester? Sophomore year, we take it up a notch. In addition to activities like we ask each student to produce a personal branding video that we upload into a database. We ask each student to take the DISC behavioral assessment. We put that into a database. And then in a kind of the closest thing I can say, it's like Shark Tank. We ask any sophomore that if they want to come up and pitch an original idea for a semester-long project in the spring of their sophomore year, so this is the fall of their sophomore year, we say you can come on up and you have X amount of minutes in order to pitch the entire institute your idea. And the whole class and faculty vote on the top ideas. We constrain the ideas by saying those ideas either have to help Seton Hall or the surrounding community. And that's still a very broad, broad depiction. And before I talk about like what some of those ideas are, let me give you the cool part. So before those students go home for holiday break, the 7 people with the winning ideas become CEOs. And we give them the database, the personal branding video database. We give them the DISC database. And we give them the voting preferences of every student. Why? Because the first class that they come back in the spring semester after break is a live draft where they get to hire their own teams of 10 students, with the only prerequisite being that they have to hire interdisciplinary teams. So just like a fantasy football draft, we have every single name on the board. And by the way, we do this with just the CEOs. We don't have all the students in there for this. It's just the CEOs. And they get to, quote unquote, hire their own teams via a draft order. And afterwards, we have a really interesting discussion about why did you choose the students that you chose, and what was the logic? What information did you use? We talk about talent and diversity and talent management and all those things. So how does that play out? Ideas that we've had in the past, they've been really fascinating. And a couple, you've seen them materialize. In one of our sessions, we had, so we take our freshmen to 9/11, we take our sophomores to Gettysburg under normal times. And one of the juniors was like, why don't we come up with an idea for an international experience where we take our folks internationally? And so they pitched to a series of donors at the end. And again, this was so ironic because this was just around COVID time period. So like all that stuff, got kiboshed. We've had other students create a app for college students interested in leadership. So students that are not in the Institute, they created an app to do some leadership development. Those students then competed at Seton Hall's Pirates Pitch Competition, where the fan favorite won about $1,600, advanced to the New Jersey Entrepreneur Competition, did very well in that, and then competed. They're one of 100 groups that competed for a national title as well. So it really depends. We've had ideas in the past of how do you do a TEDx event at Seton Hall on leadership. We've had service-based projects. We've had, I'll give you another one. Last year, one of our students came up with an idea to improve the public speaking opportunities for our leadership students, and they called it Voice of a Leader. That student is now doing monthly engagements where any student can come if they want to work on their public speaking in a kind of supportive, friendly environment in order to do those things. So we've had a ton of ideas that are now being executed. So that's kind of the secret sauce in terms of how those projects are selected. So if your son or daughter is interested, I'm not sure who asked that, Sandro, but for those, really encourage your sophomores to go pitch. Traditionally, out of the 70 plus students in the class, we usually get about 12 to 15 students that submit ideas or want to do it. But oftentimes, a lot of students are feeling that imposter syndrome where they don't want to throw their name in the hat. But I will tell you, I'm just speaking from experience, there is no better, more rewarding, and probably more challenging leadership development opportunity than being a sophomore year IDT CEO.
Thank you, Brian. I did receive another question. I actually have 10 questions, but I'm not going to dominate. I want to make sure parents that are on, please share any questions that you might have. But there is another question from a parent that I received was, what are some of the other student-led initiatives other than the family initiative?
Sure. So I guess I can tackle this one too. So we have several. One is we run a completely student-run weekly podcast. So it's called the Seton Hall Undergraduate Leaders Podcast, and it's run by one of our students in ComArts called Kai DeJesus, and they are awesome. But when I say student-run, students select the guests, students do the interview, students do the show notes, students put it on the web, they distribute it, they market it, they advertise it, they edit it. It is first class. So if you have an opportunity, you can go try to find our Seton Hall Undergraduate Leaders Podcast. Number two is we run a strategic communications platform. So when you look at our Instagram page, for example, at Buccino Leaders, and if you're not following it, I encourage you to do so. Or you take a look at some of the content that's on our website, or we have a LinkedIn page. All these are things where students help us produce that content and put it out there. So that's an interesting, another student-run initiative. We have a diversity and inclusion initiative. And actually, that idea came out of one of our IDTs as well, before the university had one. So to me, this was like we were a first mover in that space very early on. So we have, and actually those students are going to be presenting. That IDT team that created that diversity inclusion initiative is now going to brief every single one of our freshman students. They did it last year as well. So that's a great leadership opportunity. We have a student council that produces, their responsibility is to take ideas from the bottom and send them to the top, and then take information that we put at the top and send them out to the various cohorts that we have. But here's two interesting facts I'll share with you on this. One is they are experiencing leadership techniques that some in even the corporate world are not familiar with. So, for example, they came up with this idea that they've seen elsewhere. I think they got it from Palo Alto and kind of in the tech world, but silent meetings, which you kind of like, what the heck is a silent meeting? And they've done it to great effect. And I've actually since shared this with some of my corporate entities that I work with. And they're like, that's a great idea. And I'm like, yeah, I learned it from my student council. The second one is, if you've been on LinkedIn, you'll notice that the Institute has produced Seton Hall's, what I believe to be the first digital credential badging that the university has ever produced. And guess where that idea came from? It was created, it was planned and executed by our students. So we have digital credential badging for each one of our years, as well as our leadership coaches, as well as our guest speakers and friends that come and support the Institute. So again, that's another one. So anyways, we have multiple. And by the way, I'm just speaking at the Institute level. The associate directors know that they have student-run initiatives all the way in their centers as well. So I just gave you the 30,000-foot view of the Institute, but you have student. We wouldn't have time tonight to talk about each of those from the cohort level.
Thank you, Brian.
There's a question in the chat. I'll jump in and read it. I guess this would be directed for Dr. Price. What is the breakdown of the years and cohorts?
So if I understand this correctly, we have 4 classes, and we have kind of a sequential nature of our curriculum. And the way I kind of think of it, in the Army, we had this phrase of crawl, walk, run. And so the first year's theme that we have is called Leading Yourself. Can you understand and really dig deep into your strengths, your weaknesses, identify what your leadership approach is? That's also when we have our freshmen take the emotional intelligence assessment the first time. And so that first year is about leading yourself. Our second year theme is called Leading Others. And so we expose you to concepts in organizational behavior, diversity and talent management, how to give and receive feedback, difficult conversations, those sorts of things. And then the sophomore year assessment is the DISC behavioral assessment. And then in our junior year and senior years, students start to spend more time with their associate directors. So in your first 2 years, you learn about leadership in a very interdisciplinary environment and at a very foundational level. And so you spend disproportionate amounts of your time with the Institute. In your junior and senior year, as you get closer to graduation and becoming a leader in your particular discipline, you spend more time with disciplinary experts. So for nurses, for example, even though I like to think I know a lot about leadership, I don't know a lot about nursing leadership. And so that's why we have individuals like Dr. Connolly who are subject matter experts in their field and can create, disciplinary specific, profession, industry level specific leadership development for those types of students. We have about, we try to bring in upwards to 80 students per year. And the challenge that we have is there's relatively high standards when it comes to maintaining it in our program. Each school has a GPA minimum which students must meet. And so as you get older, we start to see a little bit of attrition. The last thing I'll say is the only other opportunity to get into the Institute is sophomore year. And after that, we feel there's an equity issue. It wouldn't be fair to bring in somebody as a junior or a senior to come into the program and receive a certificate when the rest of the students have been going through 4 years of leadership development. So hopefully I answered that question. If you're looking for numbers real quick, this might be where this was going to. A quarter of our population comes from arts and sciences. a quarter of our population comes from the business school, and then the other 50% is broken out between the other 4 cohorts.
Thank you, Dr. Price. We have another question in the chat. I will again direct this to Dr. Price, but if any other ADs want to jump in with specifics about their cohorts, feel free to as well. So can you elaborate on opportunities for connecting students with industry leaders to secure internships?
Before you have to hear my voice again for the next couple minutes. Are there any ADs that want to jump in on this one to elaborate? I can talk about some of the areas, particularly in arts and sciences and business, but you want to speak from your perspectives? No one's going to save me.
Well,
there you go. Thanks, guys.
In terms of nursing, you know, these chief nursing executives, they know about our program at this point, and they do know that we have the cream of the crop students. So at this point, it is competitive, and they're fighting for the best students. So they are very interested in talking to us and telling our students about their programs. So that just opens the door and gives them that little edge of an opportunity to be first in line, so to speak.
So we're doing some specific networking events with our seniors. Our Diplomacy Alumni Association leaders are meeting with our students as a networking opportunity. Our Board of Advisors is meeting with our students as a networking opportunity. They're, you know, speaking to experts in our team about professional development and how best to, you know, represent yourself on LinkedIn, on, you know, in your resume and cover letter, how to approach an informational interview, all kinds of these things. Like I said, we do have an alumni mentorship program, and part of our leadership students requirement is that they're each year they're required to attend at least 3 professional development events on campus, and they're required to meet with our director of internships and career development to make sure they're maintaining that. But one of the things I'd like to share as an example is that our students are actually getting opportunities for each other. So they're, you know, following in each other's footsteps. We had for instance, this doesn't have to do specifically with internships, but opportunities for sure. One of our senior students went on a Caravan for Democracy trip to Israel. And really, that's a selective program. It's competitive. They take about 35 students each time they go from different universities from around the world. And so one of our students went. Now, I think probably 4 or 5 of our students have gone after the senior went based on his recommendation about the experience. And then our recommendations of the students, you know, they know they're getting a good student when they see an application from Seton Hall. And I just wrote 3 recommendation letters for this winter's cohort of Students for Caravan for Democracy. So our community is our communities of students within our cohorts are very strong. They're very well connected to each other, and they're helping to get, you know, internship opportunities and sharing mentorship opportunities and things like that as well.
I guess I'll just add, I think that question came from Ms. McGuire. I think in terms of, you know, as we're just starting out, those opportunities right now are probably more informal than super formal. But in time, I think that those can grow into more formal stuff. I'll give you an example. And I think one of the beautiful things of the current size of our program allows for folks like our associate directors and our network in order to kind of help people out. So, for example, Jasmine De Leon is a sophomore. She's interested in national security type issues. She contacted me about interest of being an intern at West Point in their Modern Warfare Institute. Well, I just taught there for 8 years. So, you know, when I go back up to West Point to guest lecture on November 9th, I invited Jasmine to come up to get a behind the scenes look and to meet the people that, she could be interning with and making those connections. And, I think it's those types of opportunities that I think our students are really apt to take advantage of. So, but we're looking at formalizing that stuff moving forward. My goal is, pie in the sky is when you hear the word Rhodes Scholar, you have a definite image in your mind of the caliber of that individual and what they bring to the table. I want Buccino students to have that same type of caliber so that we can open doors for them and they can walk away from Seton Hall with dream jobs and really great experiences.
Just to also add to that, and Dr. Rebecca, thank you so much. I saw your note there, so hopefully we can figure out a way to connect. I will put my email info in the chat so that way we can connect offline. But something that our College of Education students have the opportunity to do, we know that New Jersey has an Educators Association that meets and they do an annual conference. And so we try to get our students connected that way. The Buccino Leadership Institute is really phenomenal about having our advisory board members. Our advisory board members are often so engaged. They're either current teachers or former teachers, administrators, and so they are able to also connect with our students. And especially, again, I talk about this tumultuous time of becoming teacher leaders in a new normal. And so coming back to share their experiences, using how they have had to become more innovative with their curriculum, also being able to connect with leaders in the industry in terms of how they've evolved from being educators and then moved up to, let's say, become assistant principals or principals of schools. I'm connected, of course, in education and have a network of my own. And so I've been able to collaborate with even Dr. Price and have one of my colleagues that started off as a master teacher, then moved up to assistant principal, and now she's a principal of a charter school in the city of Newark. And so keeping our students connected with not just current educators, but educators and innovators that are on the move and upwardly mobile in their career, so that they see different avenues for their ability to be able to use their love for education and advocacy in ways that are also provide open mobility in their careers as teacher leaders. So those are things that we do in our program.
Any other questions? Well, I would like to recognize some of our parent leaders that are on this call that participated in the calendar year and over the 18 months that we've had the family initiative. And I would like to recognize Patrick Cusack, who presented to our leadership students about networking, and it was a great presentation. And I know he challenged some of the students to connect with him on LinkedIn. So I don't know, Patrick, if you want to share a little bit about that experience and how you've been engaged with the university as a parent and also as an alum, as a legacy family as well. Patrick, are you still on? Maybe not. Well, Patrick and his wife, Lisa, who's also an adjunct faculty, she just joined the faculty at the College of Communication and Arts in the fall. And so they've been wonderful, wonderful ambassadors to the family initiative and to the university. I also would like to acknowledge Robert LaFrance and his wife, Bernadette LaFrance. Robert also presented back in 2020 to our leadership students about his role at Samsung. And it was a really in-depth look at what Samsung has done in regards to corporate social responsibility, but also just their business. And so it was a nice insider look about what Samsung has done. And so I want to thank Robert for participating in that, and his wife Bernadette, who participated in our Seton Hall parent panel discussion during the summer for parents of incoming freshmen that had still from Stillman School, and she was able to provide some wonderful advice and answer questions. So we really appreciate her time and her knowledge to those parents that were incoming freshmen. And also to Tony Torrey and his wife, Stephanie. Unfortunately, both couldn't make it this evening. Tony participated in our How I Got Here speaker series. Tony is a managing director at Prudential who oversees their mergers and acquisition. He's been there for 30 years, and he was so generous with his time to join us virtually to kind of share his career path at Prudential. And he's all in. He said, whatever I could do to help Seton Hall students, he's all in. So we're excited. And I think he's also going to be a contributor to the new Lead magazine, which just came out with the second annual edition. So if you haven't had a chance to read both, please do so. It's just a wonderful magazine that was created from the Stillman School of Business. I know Rushan Kansal has been a big part of it, as also Dr. Price and some of the deans at the Stillman School of Business. And also his wife, Stephanie, participated in a parent panel physically when we first had our first physical in-person event, I think the end of August, for incoming freshmen and their families. And she, again, with some other parents, were on this wonderful panel, again, just answering every question you could imagine about housing, the meal plans, how to get tutoring services. So she was a great ambassador to support some of these parents of incoming freshmen. So I just want to acknowledge those three families, but there's so many. And so there's opportunities for you to be engaged. And as both Nicoles have mentioned in our goals for the family initiative, we really need your help. And as you can see, Dr. Connolly mentioned there's a parent that is a nurse that's providing those types of opportunities. And we have so many. So we're excited for this semester. We're excited for the year. And so we hope all those parents that are here today look and see how you can provide some of your time and your talent to our wonderful students, and also to our wonderful staff here, Dr. Price's wonderful team. And so we're interested in getting you engaged. There's also, I included a survey for family members in the chat. If you haven't submitted it, please, just a couple of questions that we're asking families to provide some information so we can see how we can engage you in the near future. So again, Nicoles, do you want to have some final comments before we end our meeting tonight? And I just want to thank everyone for participating. Dr. Price, Yolanda Jackson, Dr. Connolly, Elizabeth Halpen, and all the other associate directors, unfortunately, that are not here, for doing all that they do for our students and becoming some wonderful leaders.
So to echo what Sandro just said, thank you to everyone who joined, who presented and talked about their cohorts, and to all of the families out there. As a new leader of this initiative, along with Nicole, I'm super excited to see what this academic year holds for us, and I cannot wait to see many of you hopefully in person throughout the rest of the year.
Yeah, I just want to echo that too. I want to thank everyone, all the families, for coming out. I'm very excited to be a new lead of this initiative and to see what we have in store for this year.
Well, thank you, everyone. We'll be sending invitations for our pregame reception when we beat Rutgers on December 12th for the Garden State Hardwood Classic. We didn't have it last year, so I know it's going to be an exciting day. So we'll send that invitation pretty soon to all our leadership families. It'll be a great opportunity just to meet each other in person before we go to the game, have some good food, some good conversations, take some wonderful photos, and then go and see our Pirates beat on the Scarlet Knights. Well, everyone have a good night. Take care.
Thanks for coming, everybody.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you, everyone. And those incoming freshmen are so wonderful.
Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great night.
Thank you.